All right, hey everybody, it's Michael,
And Nick.
and welcome to our third week and our third episode of the Codex Comics podcast. So we have a really big week this week on both Marvel end and DC end. Some independents in there too. However, we're going to start first talk about Marvel. The next tie-in part to the Secret Empire Marvel crossover, like the end point of it, Secret Empire Omega came out this week. So I'm going to send it to Nick to talk about that.
All right, so basically, Secret Empire Omega, basically, it sets the stage for Marvel Legacies to happen. You can see all the different characters and how they reacted during the different scenarios in Secret Empire Omega. Like you can see a panel or two of Punisher taking out Hydra agents, but the main focus of this story is the good Captain America facing off against the evil Captain America in prison, and they talk, and basically they're trying to psychoanalyze each other, and basically, really, it gets all kind of feeling at times, but other than that, it's not too. I would say it's a good ending to the story, a satisfying ending. I am curious to see what is going to happen in the next issue, which is going to be the Marvel Legacies. Now I will talk about Deadpool. Deadpool lately has been more like an anti-hero rather than a villain. This issue, number 36, is basically Deadpool throws that out the window because he's had enough with this family life, and basically he gives up his family. He goes back on his murderous rampage, and funny panel is he goes to the old Hydra agent in jail and he takes him out in this epic scene. But next issue, hopefully we get to see him more despicable and more crazier than usual. Basically, that's pretty much it for Deadpool. We'll have to see what happens in the next issue. I will swing it back to Mike. He's going to talk about the first part of the Oz Effect in Action Comics.
All right. So Action Comics issue 987 came out today, and this was the first part of the Oz Effect, which features a beautiful lenticular cover. It's an amazing cover. But this issue, now we should preface this at the beginning of episodes. Spoilers.
Meaning, if you do not want to hear what happens, please turn off this podcast right now or skip ahead.
So yeah, I was disappointed with the big reveal of who Mr. Oz is. I mean, the idea has been going around for a long time. The really obvious idea is that it was Ozymandias from the Watchmen series. But it ends up being Jor-El, the father of Kal-El on Krypton, who rocketed him to Earth. I'm disappointed right now just because I think it's weird for Jor-El to have survived this. But I think within the next 4 issues or so, we're really gonna get a good payoff to that and like why he was there, and probably him quit existing from the timeline at the end of the series. I can imagine. I don't imagine him lasting past this. But anyway, the issue itself is phenomenal. We really just get a look into Superman's life, and it's really nice to go back to that. Just seeing Clark and Lois and even John just at the Daily Planet, and just talking to Perry White and Lombard, and just seeing them how they go about their lives. And then we get into a really good just look into Superman when Mr. Oz unleashes a bunch of havoc, I guess, or allows Superman to see a bunch of havoc. And Superman realizes that he couldn't save everybody. And Mr. Oz steps out of the shadows and says to him that the people of Earth don't deserve him, that he's too good for them. And I think that's really a really interesting look into Superman, just his ability wanting to save everybody and making him realize that he always can't, and that how selfless he is compared to the selfishness of the human race. I think is really interesting. Any words on that, Nick?
Okay, so basically this issue reminds me of an old issue from Superman. Superman's talking to the Guardians of the Universe, which is the Green Lantern Guardians that we all know, the little blue men. But anyway, it basically goes back to what they said to Superman. They said, "Look, man, you can't save everyone, because if you do, humanity can't learn and evolve from their mistakes." So I like how this scene reflects in this issue of Action Comics. Um, and basically, Superman's never going to try to. He's going to keep trying to save as many people as he can, but the unfortunate truth is, even though you saved all those lives, there's always going to be someone you're going to miss, unfortunately. But I'll go bring it back to Mike.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see how this story goes forward, and I really believe after seeing this first issue and just the emotion that was written into it, I really believe that this story is going to go down as one of the best Superman stories of all time. It's going to be a Superman story, like it's going to be a classic. Depending on what they do with this Jor-El being Mr. Oz twist, I mean, Mr. Oz actually first appeared back in Superman New 52, issue 32, the first Jeff Johns, John Romita Jr. issue. Mr. Oz appeared in that, and I mean, there has been lots of allusions towards it being Ozymandias with all the computer screens and everything. So I think that this may be just a red herring, and we're going to get into some more of what people expected. And I think this is really going to tie into to Doomsday Clock and everything that Rebirth has been so far. So next, I'm going to go back to Nick and let him talk about Venomverse issue 2.
All right, so Venomverse issue 2. It starts out with Venom fighting Poison. Poison, if you didn't listen to last episode, is basically the Spider-Man version of Venom at this point from Evolve or Die. Basically, Poison has control of most of the heroes, and at this point, we can see them fighting, and the other heroes try to join in, but unfortunately, Captain America symbiote is captured, and it basically turned into an enemy by Sharon Carter. But this issue is just mainly fighting between them, and you can see sort of what's going on with the enemy symbiotes. Next issue, I hope to see more lore into it, maybe. But the issue reveals that Doctor Doom is pulling the strings of everyone. There's not much more to be said about this issue, honestly. We'll just see what happens, honestly. And now, Star Wars. Star Wars was kind of a classic, kind of funny issue this week. You had R2-D2 on a Star Destroyer trying to rescue C-3PO, who has been taken captive by the Scar Squadron, which is a bunch of, think of Republic Commando stormtroopers at this point. And we can just see R2 beating the crap out of all the stormtroopers on the Star Destroyer. And he does rescue C-3PO. And it's more just a filler issue this time around, but next issue we get to see Scar Squadron in action. I'll bring it back to Mike as he talks about Dark Knight's Metal number 2.
So it's a really weird week whenever I was cheering more for some of the twists and turns in Dark Knight's Metal than I was for a Superman comic. Dark Knight's Metal, I mean, it was Scott Snyder being Scott Snyder, just having fun with these characters. At the end of the issue, we find out that everything Batman has been trying to prevent. He was trying to prevent himself from being in the gateway to the Dark Multiverse. He was trying so hard to prevent this, and eventually, Batman doesn't win, which is, I think, probably the reason I like this issue the most, just Batman didn't win. Because everybody always complains that Superman is the worst superhero ever because he's too powerful and he never loses. But I beg to differ that that's actually Batman, because Batman always plans for everything, always plans ahead, and he always escapes in the end. He always, no matter what he plans for, his plan always works and goes through. And that's what I think was so good about this issue, is Batman failing. And Batman's not going to be in the upcoming issues. I'm sure he'll be back sooner rather than later in this issue, but he actually split into the different nightmare versions of himself, like the Red Death and the Devastator and all those. So it was just it was crazy to see, especially this weird Joker horror style Batman character. And I'm really really excited for that character. And his little pet Robin things that were eating flesh at one point. And I thought it was really interesting to note that Batman has the Darkseid baby from the end of the Darkseid War in the New 52 Justice League run. I think it's really interesting how he got this baby and why the cliffhanger of that was brought into Metal and not Doomsday Clock or something that's been marketed as more of this rebirth story as a whole. So I'm curious to see the bigger picture part that Metal plays in the DC universe with Rebirth and everything right now. But this issue and this whole series is just such a fun ride from Snyder. And seeing the Dark Multiverse, I think is going to be really fun. Seeing all these evil Batmen, everybody fighting them. I'm excited to see the tie-in books where they tell their origin stories. And what these different fears of Batman's are. And I think this is really going to humanize Batman even more so because we're going to get a glimpse into his mind through these characters and see what his fears are. Thoughts on that issue, Nick?
I have to comment on the last part. Basically, the crazy Batman that was leading the guys, assuming, is also called the Batman Who Laughs. Do you think that this version of Batman is probably the worst Batman? Like, is this his centric fear, you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Scott Snyder has said that this is the leader of the Batman. So, I mean, he's the leader for a reason. And I'm interested to see what his origin is. I mean, like, what exact fear is this exemplifying? Which is kind of interesting because with Batman the White Knight coming out, where Joker has to stop a Batman that's gone too far, I think this is kind of a parallel to that in a way. Just different, like kind of showing Batman's fear of what would happen maybe if he became the Joker or something like that. I'm really interested to see what fear exactly that is. I know Scott Snyder did tease recently about the origins of two of them. The Batman the Red Death is Batman's fear of if he would experiment with the Speed Force and he would become the worst supervillain of all time. And I forget I think the Batman the War Machine, is that one of them? Yeah, so that one is his fear about Alfred dying. So I'm interested to see where all this goes and what kind of bigger picture this story is going to tell. All right, so Nick, with this whole Barbados kind of being teased in the issue as like the villain thing, can you explain to me who Barbados is and kind of where that comes from?
All right. Barbados is basically in DC Comics the Bat God of things. Barbados first showed up in the story known as Final Crisis. He was actually embedded in a gun of sorts, Darkseid's gun. You can see in the one page where Batman's holding this fancy gun, and he's talking to Darkseid, and Darkseid comments that, you've never used a gun, Batman. Why now? And he's like, well, because I can. But anyway, Barbados shows up actually in the story of the Return of Bruce Wayne, the 6-issue limited series. Basically, it plagues Bruce Wayne to where he forgets who he is, and he actually has to go back through time to find out who he really is. And this god keeps plaguing him, even in New 52. But it's kind of cool to see him now show up and basically give Bruce Wayne the ultimate ultimatum. Because if you think about it, Barbados created Batman in a sense. Your thoughts on this, Mike?
Yeah, going into this, I didn't know too much about the whole Barbados thing. Having not really got into universe-wide stuff until mid New 52 stuff. But yeah, I mean, just this like the Bat God idea. I mean, the Court of Owls showed up too, because I mean that's Scott Snyder's legacy is the Court of Owls. He had a lot more than that, but like the stuff that you can do with the Court of Owls story wise, and what we were saying last week about this idea of creating new characters, like new memorable characters. I really think the Court of Owls was that. But yeah, I mean the whole the bringing Barbados back for this Dark Knight story is really interesting, and I want to know more about this dark multiverse. Is it only evil Batman, or are there evil Superman? Like, can we see Superman spheres in this? I mean, that's partial because I'm a Superman guy, but like, I mean, look at Jessica Cruz isn't in this issue, but if we could see her split into her fears, there'd be an infinite amount of them. If we could see Hal Jordan's fears, I mean, would we see any? Because he's a Lantern, he's not supposed to have any, but Jessica's a Lantern, and she obviously has fears. So I'm curious if this is just the Batman Dark Multiverse, or if there's like other heroes in that multiverse, or if there's a whole other like Superman Dark Multiverse. Also, in the issue, they had Carter Hall's journal, and he was talking about the origins of the multiverse. So I'm interested to see where that goes, and like if they tell us the origins of this multiverse. And if anything, I'm thinking that's going to be maybe what ties this story into Doomsday Clock with Dr. Manhattan and everything, kind of pulling strings. We'll see. I mean, this could be completely different from Metal, or from Doomsday Clock, or from everything DC in general, but it is going to have ramifications for the universe. All right, there's some other titles that came out this week that we really don't have time to delve into and discuss in great detail. Mr. Miracle, a reprint of the first issue, came out this week. Really great read. And then issue 2 also came out this week, which I'm excited to read and know where the story is going. I mean, a couple people have called it the next Watchmen or the Dark Knight Returns and everything. So I'm excited to see if it lives up to that. It's a really great read. Also, Amazing Spider-Man number 32 came out this week. Pretty cool story leading into the fall of Parker and the Back to the Legacy numbering. And also Generations, Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel came out this week. More stuff leading into Legacy, which is really exciting. We're going to have some big weeks for Marvel ahead.
Also, that came out this week. You have Batman Detective Comics. This is the issue right before A Lonely Place of Dying.
Okay.
Also, we got Transformers Lost Light number 9. And because it's Harley Quinn's 25th anniversary, we got a special one-shot issue to cover that.
All right, so you were telling me earlier that a new HeroClix countertop came out. So how about you talk about that for a little bit?
All right, so this is actually kind of different from the normal Marvel DC MO. We got actually an undead countertop, which features kind of the more generic undead characters like skeletons, werewolves, reapers, and demons and ghosts. You know, kind of the more common figures. Also, that came out last week. You got the Tomb of Annihilation module books, which I hear are very interesting modules. It's a really good story, and basically you got let's just say this story continues with the Storm King's Thunder. We'll have to see what happens when. Oh, and also with the book, you got some cool kind of they're like a dark sage kind of colored dice. They come in this fancy tin, and they come with each die. You got extra D6s in there that I've seen.
All right, so now we're going to talk about our picks of the week. So first, let me just say this. I couldn't pick a comic for this week. Too much good stuff happened this week. Luckily, I narrowed it down to 2, which would be Dark Knight's Metal number 2 and Action Comics, the first part of the Oz Effect. We talked about these in great lengths at towards the beginning of this podcast. And so you know my thoughts on them. They're both great issues, and I think the Oz Effect is going to go down as one of the great Superman stories of all time. Dark Knight's Metal is going to go down as one of the greatest events of all time. Both these stories are going to have huge impacts on the DUC universe in general, and I just think they're really fun reads that have an emotional impact in story. Now, my trade pick of the week isn't one that's out yet. It actually comes out in October. It's Batman and the Flash, The Button. This was an arc in the comics that was Batman Flash, and it was a really, really great story. I mean, like, the level of action wasn't that high, but just like seeing the stuff happen. I mean, Jay Garrick comes back, and he doesn't come back anyway. And seeing them chase the Reverse Flash, and this was the story where Dr. Manhattan was confirmed for the DC universe. And there's a lot of speculation on that with the DC universe Rebirth special, but the Button finally confirmed that. The hardcover is going to feature the lenticular cover that flashes between Batman and the Flash, and it's just a really great read, and I'm excited to sit down with the trade and read it from start to finish again. And so now over to Nick's picks.
All right, so my comic pick of the week has to be, well, anyway, Action Comics and Dark Knight's Metal, they're both equally good issues, but my pick has to go in the other side of the fence. Complete, more, let's say, they're going right and I'm going left. But my pick is Titans number 15 because I just like the Titans and how they're more connected with each other. And this story arc kind of delves into Nightwing being a spy for Hive, which is an enemy organization. Oh man, Dick Grayson has to save himself from his team beating on him because they figured out he was the spy. But it's more about Wally West than anything. He actually writes a letter to Dick Grayson telling him to watch over the team because, in all reality, Wally West is the heart of this team. I like to see where this is going. Like, I can't wait for the next issue of this. My trade pick for the week is actually Daredevil season 1. It's basically collects the origin of Daredevil and how he came to be. Kind of simplifies the old 60s comics in a sense. If you watch the Netflix Daredevil, they're kind of their own thing because they're different in a sense. This one's more happy-go-lucky, while the Netflix Daredevil series is more dark and gritty. I'll take it back to Mike as he talks about the upcoming events.
Yeah, so there's a lot of upcoming events up around the Codex shop, just in Ebensburg in general, and at the store itself. First, we have Batman/Harley Day, because it's the Harley Quinn's 25th anniversary. She's taking over Batman Day. That day is Saturday, September 23rd. Also, an Ebensburg community event, which is the Potato Fest, which is Saturday, September 30th. The Mount Aloysius College Charity Con is Saturday, October 21st. And another event at the comic book store is the Halloween Comic Fest, which is Saturday, October 28th. It's been another great week for comics. We'll see you next week, and hopefully it'll be another great week. See you then.